Folks, you've heard me talk about your W-2 being the key to financial freedom. It's not a prison. I've been working on this. I now think I could change the talk track to your job doesn't have to be a life sentence. If you choose, it can be 40 hours for 40 years to live on 40%, but that's your choice. You do have the opportunity for early release or parole or whatever you want to call that, called financial freedom. And of course, I want to have this conversation with someone who actually did just that, the one and only Anna Kelly. How you doing, Anna?
I'm good. Great to be here. I love this topic, and we had a great time. For those that haven't listened, go back and listen to the video we did last week, kind of teasing this out and getting it started. But it's such an important conversation, I think, especially for, those that have watched a lot of, YouTube and follow people on social media that say, if you have a job, you're not free, right? Because
Yeah.
you should be an entrepreneur, and the only way to financial freedom is entrepreneurship. And we know that that's just not true.
Oh, it's not only not true, it's frankly dangerous for most people, right?
Yes.
I'm really starting to kind of visualize this, right? Our education system that grew up in the 50s and 60s, if not before that, the job of the education system, my words, no one else's, was to produce employees.
Yes.
Those employees were
Still
supposed to
is.
work. It still is, right? It
Hmm.
hasn't changed. It hasn't changed. It should
Yeah.
change. It hasn't changed. Still producing employees. For the longest time, the idea was to work at the same place for 40 years and get the gold watch. Had pensions. Then it went to self with 401ks versus pensions. Company funded versus personally funded. And the whole idea was keep them working, keep them spending, keep them on the hamster wheel. And I'm really starting to get this vision that when you're an employee, okay, you're in prison, you're tied to it because you got to pay for life, but you don't have to stay there. There are things that you could do for early release or parole.
Yes.
There are also things you could do to make it a life sentence, right?
Yeah.
FOMO, fear of missing out, living above your means, charging everything. There are things that you could do to stay in there longer, but it
Right.
doesn't have to be a life sentence, right?
Right. And there are things you can do to stay in it and actually love it, right?
Yeah.
And being an entrepreneur is not for everybody. And I'm very thankful for my job because my job gave me the stability and the income to be able to start thinking about how can I get to a place where my income is not dependent on the number of hours that I work, right? Because I wanted to be home with my child. There's many reasons that we want to have time freedom, and that's what it really comes down to is financial freedom leads to time freedom. I
Right.
know many people that are technically financially free, but they're still a slave
Oh,
to their business.
yeah.
They're working more hours than they would have in their day job. And that is very, very common for most entrepreneurs. And so if you just look, Michael, at the fact that you said most people are taught to be a good employee, you're taught to learn, you're taught to try to give your best and take tests and whatnot. And so most people have that kind of mindset. They're not taught. How do you think about whether you want to be your own boss? How do you think about whether starting a business is right for your makeup as a human being, right? So we've got personalities, and I don't love really any of the personality tests, but they do give us a pretty good understanding that you've got some people that are very melancholy, like
Mhm.
life is okay. They're kind of like the Eeyore,
Mhm.
of
Yep.
Winnie the Pooh. I'm dating myself, but they're kind of like, life is okay. I'm never gonna go anywhere. I'm
Mhm.
not real motivated. I just want to chill, right? They're
Yep.
never going to make it as an entrepreneur unless they really do the hard work of personal development, which comes along with entrepreneurship, right? And they say, I can change who I am,
Right.
fundamentally. You've got other people that are very, high. Most entrepreneurs I know are like you and I. We're probably type A. We're very driven and we're self-motivated and we are
Mhm.
optimists and we have a
Yes.
vision. We know we can execute it or get the right team to execute it. And we have a vision that we can be driven to accomplish. a lot of people can't do that happily because it's just not their personality, right? So they've got to do a lot more work to get themselves where they enjoy not only the grit, but also the ups and downs of being a business owner, the risks that you have to take, the hard times that a lot of people, quite frankly, don't have the grit to overcome. They'd rather have it easy, and they'd rather say, you know what, I may not love what I do, but if I'm good at it, I make a good salary, I can give 8 hours a day. And guess what, Michael? While you're working, you still have another 16 hours a
Yeah.
day to do whatever you want to do with. So you can spend some of that 16 hours a day, like we did, in
Yeah.
some cases more, right? Less sleep, building that side hustle, building your long-term path to financial freedom on the foundation of having that income coming in consistently at a job that you're good at. It pays well, and it starts to help you to, cover your financial needs, and then to save some extra to start investing either passively or in starting your own business, whatever have you. Obviously, buying real estate is one of those things. So I think this is not a scientific number, but just kind of from coaching a lot of people, speaking at a lot of conferences, talking to high school and college students, I think that probably only about 20 to 25% of people are really made to be entrepreneurs, love the grind, have the determination, are willing to stick with it and have the grit to do the hard things, the blood, sweat, and tears in the early years that builds that financial freedom in the later years. So it isn't for everybody. It was for me. I'm so thankful I did it and I stuck with it. And it doesn't take as much grit, determination, and entrepreneurial skills as it did for you and I if you have a high income and you're just making wise investments and doing it fairly passively and taking a little bit longer to do it. So there's many different ways, but yes, your job is the first way that you gain some financial freedom and get to move out from your parents' home. Most people aren't becoming instant, Instagram or God forbid, OnlyFans, entrepreneurs making a whole bunch of money. They're getting a job, they're making an honest paycheck, and they start to, do what the vast majority do. I mean, a lot of people can be really happy doing that, quite frankly, Michael.
Yeah. I really, for the longest time, I've had this talk track of, 40 hours for 40 years to live on 40%, right?
Yes.
That's kind of how, Gen X was: go to school, get a good job, all those things. I now, because I talk with somewhere between 9 and 11 millionaires, all of them were employees at some point
Yes.
who have earned financial freedom. I just have done 11 interviews with brand new real estate investors, brand new being 1 to 3 years. So they're
Awesome.
still in the hard part, right? They're still in the suck part. But
Yeah.
it's very clear: sacrifice, you will have to sacrifice something. And I want to go back
Yes.
to the best financial move that you did. You've told me and the audience before, selling the big house in Texas, buying the fourplex in Pennsylvania, living in the upstairs unit with 2 kids was the best
Yes.
financial decision, because that started it all. It wasn't easy. It wasn't hard. Most people would look at it as a step backwards, but it was everything to you in the beginning, right?
Absolutely. And even worse than that, Michael, we sold the big house. We rented for a year, a much smaller place, no bells and whistles, to be able to save money and get our business plan together to start a business. Then we moved in with my in-laws for a year
Oh, I
with 2
forgot that.
babies. Right.
I
So,
forgot that.
think about being in your 30s and moving back home with your parents. Some people would say we're the deadbeat
Yeah.
millennials. I'm a Gen X, right?
Right.
But
Yeah.
we were able to move in with my in-laws, and that was able to help us to spend the time and money we needed to start the business, to start the entrepreneurship. And then a year after living with the in-laws, we took a step up, which was still 2 steps down from our house, and we bought
Yeah.
the 4-unit, 2-bedroom. We renovated it, and we lived there for a couple years while we had, built my husband's business, kind of started real estate. And it was the best thing I ever did, because you know what?
Yeah.
That year that we bought that 4-unit, I worked for AIG, the economy collapsed. And the only way we were able to survive with a business that we started the year before at the height of the economy, 700,000 in business startup debt. That
Ooh.
includes equipment, business loans, and a building. So part of it was a building, about half of that. But we had, overhead, we had employees. And if we had had a house payment, we would have had to go into foreclosure, and personal bankruptcy. And so
Yeah.
that little apartment allowed us the most important lesson, that if I could only share one thing with everybody, it's live below your means while you work to expand your
Yes.
means. And that's going to look different for everybody. For me, it
Yeah.
was sell the house, live with the in-laws, house hack the 4-unit. If you're young and you want time freedom and not living with your parents, house hack a triplex, a quad if you can, or a duplex. Live in it. You'll never find a cheaper investment. You don't have to put any money down in certain areas of the country. You can house hack that. And then, like me, if the economy does falter, you have 3 people paying your living expenses. So by us essentially living for free, because the 3 other doors paid for our mortgage and our taxes and most of our insurance, I think my net was like $50 in a month that it cost me to live. Well, that allowed me to have a couple $1,000s a month to help keep our employees working,
Yeah.
to help with any oopsies that happen with the apartments, and to build up enough down payments that I was able to start that BRRRR method and start building wealth. I never could have done that, Michael, if I didn't learn to be content, be patient, and live below my means, but also constantly work to expand my means at the same time. One or
Amen.
the other isn't good enough. You have to
Both.
do both. You have to, if you really want to exponentially expedite your path to financial freedom and time freedom, whatever that looks like to you.
Yeah, a couple of the stories I just want to share with you because I think you'll get a kick out of them. First, Denzel and his wife sold the house and bought a duplex so they could house hack. Their payments were essentially cut in half. I thought of you when they shared that story. Another, I think it was a young man. His living expenses after house hacking a multi-unit is $85 a month, right? From
Wow.
thousands of dollars. So
And
people are getting
how
it.
much does that give him to invest and save up on
Exactly.
down payments
Stack,
and buy more
stack, stack,
units to
stack.
create cash flow? Yeah, it's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah. So I think I've done 11 or 12 of these. I have a couple more scheduled, looking to do more because it's just people are doing the work, Anna. I mean,
Yeah.
sometimes we get lost and maybe you and I are screaming into a vacuum and nobody's hearing it. Anna, it's working. Some people are hearing, some people are taking action. Um, thank you for all you do. It's been a fun 5 years.
It has been. This month is 5 years since we started talking, and I was still at my job. And quite
Yeah.
frankly, I was good at my job. I resented my job because I wasn't home with my kids, but my job was the thing that allowed me to just stick to it, give me the financial stability. 100% matching in my 401k. You mentioned your
Yeah.
401k. Like if I put 3%, my company put 3%. If
Yeah.
I put 6, they put 6. Like that's instant 100% return on your money, right? And
Yeah.
so I'm so thankful that I had that job. But the other thing is, we as a society want everything now. We want it easy. And that is the reality. I don't remember the exact phrase, but it's something like, good times produce hard times, which produce hard men, which produce good times, which produce soft men, something like that, right? But we've had relatively good times for 15 years and people want it easy. And the reality is, many people that say, Anna, I want to do what you do. If I give them the advice, Michael, to take a step back, figure out a way to live below your means. You don't understand. I live in California. Well, you
Yeah.
might invest somewhere else, move, right? If you can, right? It's not always that easy, but here's the reality. I feel like if I could do it with a husband and a business and 2 kids that turned into 4 kids, anybody can do it. You have to choose your hard. That's
Choose
the
your
other
heart.
thing is,
Yeah. Yeah.
everything is hard. Everything worth doing is hard. This is not the easy button, get rich quick. There will be some bumps, but I could choose the hard of living, essentially for free and building my net worth into a very strong net worth and replacing my income in a few years. Or I could choose the hard of having my lifestyle, meet up to my salary, expect the increases, not get the increases, live check to check, go into debt and credit cards, like more than 70% of the population. That's what they choose. That's hard. The problem isn't the job. The problem is that they're not willing to live below their means and they want everything and they want it all now, keeping up with the Joneses. And so choose your hard, live below your means. The other thing, I'll just end with this, in terms of house hacking, some people say I can't, and they might have big families and that can be hard, but a form of house hacking, after we bought that 4-unit, when I had the next baby, we decided to, okay, is it time to buy the house? During that time, we bought multiple properties. I think we had maybe 16 units, if I'm not mistaken, while we lived in that property. And then we moved into a rented house. We saw a sign. It was in a really nice neighborhood. I'm pretty sure my rent was $1,300 a month. That was 10 years ago. But for a really big, beautiful house, huge yard, for me to buy that house, my payment would have been over $2,000 a month with taxes and insurance. But I was able to rent a nicer house than what I could have bought, and then still continue to live below my means, have my rental income from my other properties cover that $1,300 a month. I still lived for free when I offset it by my rental income. So there's many ways to do it. But keep your day job. God forbid, don't quit your day job now thinking the economy is going to rear back and everything's going to be great again. That was a mistake that I fed into in 2007. All the talking heads, we've escaped a hard landing. Everything's going to be fine. The economy's booming. Well, didn't it hit me like a Mack truck when that fell apart? So be cautious. Don't quit your job now. Use it as a tool, that foundation, then live below your means, invest the rest. And that's really the key to ultimately having financial freedom and getting to work less if you want to. Work becomes optional rather than a necessity to trade your time for more dollars.
Absolutely. I love it. Anna, where can people find you?
Great. You can find me here every week. Social media, Anna Kelly, REI Mom. And for coaching and consulting related to real estate, deal review, and investing, you can contact me at annakellyinvesting.com.
Awesome. Thank you so much.